Alright guys, coaches, the purpose of this video is to go through the different types of heuristics that we're going through in the math program, as well as to go through the concepts of each of the four that we'll be doing. Right? So as mentioned in the previous video, there are actually two categories of students that we're looking at. First of all, some of them could be over here, and then some of them could be over here. So this video is focusing on this part, right? Because we'll be looking at the heuristics and then going through the four concepts that we're going through. Now, just a quick overview again. What you need to know is that MOE actually requires them to know up to 13 different types of heuristics. Now, what are heuristics? Heuristics are just ways to solve problem sums, like different ways, different angles. How do you solve a problem sum? So, for the purpose of this course, the psle workshop, we cannot be doing all of them due to time constraints. So there's only a few that we're doing, right? What we'll be doing is this. Over here, draw a model, make a diagram using a model. Next, we'll be looking at before and after concepts. Next, we'll be looking at making supposition, and another one, right? Simplify the problem, right? So there's just four. Okay, now in the notes or the handouts, there's that the questions that we're going through, they don't specifically have the name, draw a model, a diagram, or simplify the problem, right? So in our notes, we actually call this remainder concept. And then we have one that's before and after. So we have one that is make supposition and simplifying the problem, right? I think we called it something else, right? So later we're gonna take a look. Okay, so the first one that I want to go through, sorry, we call it the repeated identity. Okay, so the first concept that we're going through is repeated identity. Okay, so this is the one. Okay, so the very first concept, heuristics, repeated identity. Now this is only for standard. Now for all of these questions and the things that you see over here, the format looks like this, right? First we have the question written here. Next we have some of the things that we need you to be able to identify from the child. Alright, so for example, let's take a look at this part. So can the student briefly describe the question? Does the student know that there are two sets of ratios? Things like that. Okay, and the ability to solve the problem sum. Now all these are post-evaluation questions that you have to answer in the student's passport, right? So that we can identify if do they exactly understand what's going on with the question, right? So in this video, I'll be going through the concept. Okay, how or what this concept of a repeated identity is all about. Alright, so without further ado, let's look at the question. So in this question, we have Sally, Betty. They share some stamps in the ratio 4:5. Okay, Betty, Jane share some stamps in the ratio 1:2. So if the three girls had 216 stamps, how many stamps did Jane have? So we see that there are actually two sets of ratio. First one here and then the other one here. That's why the question is this. Does the student know that there are two sets of ratios? And next, next thing you need to realize is that there is a person who's being repeated. There's Betty. So Betty is being repeated here as well as here. And does the student know that the sum of ratio the sum has to fulfill total of 216, because the total number of stamps is 216, right? Next, we want to look at now how to solve this question. Now, the way to solve this question is you have to realize that since Betty's ratio is being repeated, we must make Betty's ratio the same in both sets of ratios. Now, what do we mean by that? Let's take a look at the solution. Okay, so this is a solution. So at first, we know that Sally, let me get a pen. Sally and Betty's ratio is 4:5. Ratio of Sally to Betty is 4:5. And then Betty to Jane is 1:3. Now since Betty is being repeated, we have to make this column the same, right? So that we can compare. And what do we do to make this column, this particular column, the same? We multiply this whole row by 5, right? So this is ratio. What this means is that if you want to make this number 1 become 5, you got to multiply the whole thing by 5. And once you multiply everything by 5, you actually get 5:15, right? And once Betty's ratio is 5, they will be the same, right? It tells you this and can bring the Sally's value down here, right? Now, then what we do is we find the sum of the ratio, the sum. That is, we add this together, we get a total of 24 units. Now, this 24 units represents 216 stamps. We take 216 divided by 24, we get 9 stamps, right? And since Jane has 15 units, which is, we get it from here, Jane has 15 units, hence we take 15 times 9, which is 135. So Jane has 135 stamps, right? So the concept for repeated identity, once again, is that there are two ratios, and then there's one person who is being repeated in two of the ratios, right? So we're going to take a look at another one just to see if we can identify that. Okay, so you have Cindy twice as many sweets as Fiona. So that's one set of ratio they can get from here. Next, Sandra, twice as many sweets as Cindy. That's the second ratio that you are going to derive from here, right? And then how do you know that this is a repeated identity question? We try to identify who is being repeated. So who is being repeated? Cindy. Okay, Cindy is being repeated in these two scenario, right? So these are some of the questions that we want to ask the students and see whether they are able to understand this. And the solution over here, right? So there's a bit of an error here. This thing should be shifted to this side. So you actually get Fiona, Cindy, Sandra should be 1:3 and 1:2. Okay, let's take a look. Cindy has 3 times as many sweets as Fiona. Yep. And Sandra has twice as many as Cindy. Yep. Okay, this should be the ratio. Right. So what do we do with this ratio? We have to identify that Cindy is the same. So I gotta make this has to be 3, and here I multiply everything by 3. So 2 times 3 becomes 6, and Cindy will become 3, and Fiona just remain as 1. Alright, then next we find the sum of the units, which is 10. 10 units is 240 sweets, because that's the total number of sweets, and we find 1 unit is 24. So Cindy has 3, hence she has 72, right? And that is what the question is looking for. Right, so this is the concept for repeated identity. In the next video, we will look at how exactly do you execute this in the group. Okay.